Hey guys, how you going? This is BillyEatWorld again, and today I just want to talk about what I think is the biggest design flaw that we can see in Battlefield 5 at the moment. And it's not really something that I can sum up in just a few words, but in a nutshell, it's the fact that the Battlefield 5 we thought we were going to get back in early 2018 didn't really turn out to be the one that we actually got. Now, some of you guys might see that as a good thing, some of you guys might not, but in this video, I want to talk about how either way, the game isn't probably as good as it could be, which isn't to say that it's not a good game, because I think it really is. But the real question that I want to ask in this video is, did DICE maybe nerf their own game to try and satisfy too many people? Alright, so to kick off, I just want to start by saying that, well, obviously I'm not a game developer, but I don't think you have to be to understand what breaks a game. And I can imagine at the top of the list of the biggest nightmare flaws for any game studio would be the kind of ones that stop the game from working completely. Now, obviously Battlefield 5 does have its fair share of bugs at the moment, like the ones that cause crashes or low FPS or whatever. But we're not going to talk about those in this video because, you know, we know from the history of Battlefield games, those sorts of things usually do crop up and they do tend to get fixed over a period of time. Apart from that, though, especially in multiplayer games, what I think is probably the biggest single threat by far is actually the player base itself. Because believe me, even if we don't want to, we will destroy the game from the inside out if the devs don't put into place systems to stop us from doing that. And I'm not just talking about hackers, that's a pretty extreme case, although that is kind of a problem at the moment. I'm talking about all the little things we do that hurt the game that we don't necessarily think about. Like, for example, when the devs design a map in such a way that makes it easy to spawn trap the enemy team. That sort of thing happens all the time. And also things as small as, you know, when one weapon is so overpowered that everyone in the game uses it and completely ruins the weapon meta. Now, obviously things like spawn trapping and team balancing and weapon balancing are a huge issue in Battlefield 5 at the moment, as they are in every multiplayer game, but that's still not what I think is the worst flaw. What I think is the worst problem is that DICE clearly designed Battlefield 5 to be a certain type of game, and then they made the mistake of listening too hard to what the community supposedly wanted and backtracked on a lot of their original design ideas. What that meant is that instead of getting the Battlefield game they originally set out to make, what we got is halfway between a more serious, more tactical shooter and halfway to being Battlefield 1. And so what that means is that a lot of the new systems that they wanted to put in place, they just don't work the way they were intended. And even though the devs are putting out pretty regular updates, these things aren't still 100% there yet. Let me just lay this out a bit for you. Obviously, the big things that changed in this game were things like spotting and the new attrition mechanics. And of course, as we all know now, there was really big changes to the way gunplay works, which has made weapons much more accurate and way more deadly. Except for the bolt-action rifles, which actually, by the removal of the sweet spot mechanic, effectively got a nerf. And of course, there's the issues we're having with the SMGs, which are always pretty niche and therefore average in any Battlefield game. But the problem is, as we all know, they're now tied to the medic class, which effectively nerfs that class in general. Now, with that being said, I think it goes beyond just weapon balance, and what I think is probably the biggest issue here is that you can tell what DICE wanted you to do in this game is value your life and resources. And in the first few versions, we saw this pretty clearly. We saw non-regenerating health with no personal med kit, we saw serious ammo attrition, and most importantly, a much longer death loop. In the current version of the game, though, what we have is a much more forgiving game, which allows for more aggressive playstyles, which I know a lot of you guys really like. But like I said, you don't really have to value your life anymore. If you do get killed, it's only a few seconds before you spawn back in, which in most cases is quicker than waiting for a revive, which, as you know, is something that they really wanted to push in this game, which hasn't worked out. So what that means, especially with the pretty long animation times and the fact that you can spawn on squad mates, is that reviving isn't that valuable either, and by extension the medic class loses some value as well. Because I mean, really, when you think about it, apart from the loss of a ticket, what benefit is there for the medic to run out and risk his own life to pick you up when he could just stay in cover, act as a mobile spawn point, and a few seconds later, you would spawn beside him in cover as well. And I think the perfect example of the player base collectively realizing this was when DICE released Squad Conquest, and for a few days everybody thought, finally, this is the mode where the medic can actually shine. But as we saw, everyone just went back to playing Assault, because at the end of the day, if you're running the best guns and you don't die as often, then you don't need a medic as often, and you probably end up with a better KD in the long run anyway, which is better for your team. Now also, like I said before, along with the medic, the other main class that got impacted by DICE's new design philosophy was the Recon. And initially in the first few builds of BF5 that I played, sniping in particular was heaps better because of the non-regenerating health and because of the spotting changes. And then what did DICE do? They added in passive spotting and the personal med kit, which as we've seen has basically made it so you either need to headshot an enemy or just not bother. And I know a lot of you guys are probably really happy there aren't more camping snipers in this game, but I mean, think back to the theme of this video. Where are these guys now? Well, they're not playing Recon, that's for sure. Also, and I've said this before in previous videos as well, the secondary role of the Recon is to be the pathfinder and to put down spawn beacons behind enemy lines to give your squad the chance to flank. But once again, how effective is this really when there's so many other places to spawn anyway, and especially now that squad mates don't get sent back to the spawn screen like they used to? Firstly, they might not even realise there's a spawn beacon up to begin with, because chances are they're just spamming the deploy button and they want to get back into the action as quick as they can. And once again, that comes back to the whole idea that people just don't value their life in Battlefield 5, because it doesn't matter. If you die, you can be back in the same gunfight in 15 seconds anyway. So anyway, to finish up, I guess the whole point of this video is that if you leave it to players to figure out how they want to play the game, well, they're obviously going to gravitate towards what helps them win the easiest. And in Battlefield 5, unfortunately, as it currently stands, like I said, there's a lot of good reasons to play Assault and Support, but there's a lot less reasons to want to play the Recon and the Medic. And obviously, this has had a huge effect on everything else in the meta. Like, for example, maybe this is the reason why tankers are always getting swarmed with Panzerfausts. And it's not just that, and it's not just the class meta which has been affected. If you really think about it, there's a ton of other things in this game which just don't work the way that they should. So I think the real question is not how do DICE fix these problems, because we've already talked about a few of those things in this video already. I think the most important question is, would Battlefield 5 be better now if they just had have stuck to their guns and ended up making the game they wanted to originally make? And I think probably the answer is yes, it would be, because we might actually get to see the result of all the time and effort that went into planning things like the attrition system and reinforcement system. But on the other hand, maybe that wouldn't be what some of you guys would consider to be a true Battlefield game. So the real question is, maybe they should have just not worried about any of that extra stuff and just made a clone of one of the classic Battlefield games like Battlefield 3. But anyway, guys, that just about wraps up this video, and obviously it's a pretty controversial topic, so make sure you let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And I mean, you guys know I'm a big fan of tactical shooters, so you know what side of the fence I come down on this one, but that's not to say that I don't disagree with you if you don't think that Battlefield 5 would have been better. Just let me know what you think, and we can have a talk about that. As always, though, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and please feel free to check out the links in the description if you want to see any more of these videos. And also, don't forget you can find my Twitter and Discord links down there as well if you want to keep in touch. And as always, until next time, see you later, and have a good one.